Welcome back to the Free Mouse MC YouTube channel, and a lot of people have a lot of opinions on electric motorbikes. However, there are a few applications where they actually excel towards their gas-powered counterpart, and we're going to check if the Maeving RM2 actually already delivers on that front. It is an electric 125 motorbike that basically falls into that class, and in that class electric bikes end up often being a bit more interesting because they have a bit more go from the way that basically you instantly have the power with the electric engine. And this one also comes in with 261 newton meters basically, so you have plenty of go right away. The bike has 7 kilowatts of constant power and 10 something of peak power, so it's still also properly in the 125 requirement, with that being the equivalent of 14 horsepower. And I think this bike could be really interesting because it is catered towards being a commuter. This is a city bike, and more cities have restrictions on parking for gas-powered motorbikes and not for electric ones. And at the same time, this bike is quite stylish. You can tell that people that used to work for Triumph work for Maeving, like from the really nice design with all the beautiful little details on the bike. However, the beautiful details are not chrome, which is good for this bike being able to stand outside. That is really lovely. One of the big questions that I have for this motorcycle is how it's going to work with the engine, because the engine is inside the wheel, and that gives the bike then quite a lot of unsprung mass. And I tested a few other electric bikes that had a similar setup where that was a critical thing. So let's see how it does. And honestly, I'm looking forward to this riding experience. And actually the color here on this one is so beautiful. And this is for a motorbike, a really high quality color, also compared to other gas-powered bikes that are in a quite high up segment. However, this is actually not that expensive. This one goes for around 8 grand. And I think with that it's really interesting, especially for self-employed people that want to get an electric vehicle as basically a tax benefit and then pay less taxes and all that kind of stuff. That works different in different European countries, so you need to figure out how that works in your country. But I think for those people this is a really interesting one. So let's swing a leg over it. For context, I'm 6'5". The bike has a seat height of 780 millimeters. Works fine, is comfortable. All the things are basically on the handlebars. I don't need to do anything with my feet. The rear brake is over here, like on a scooter. So let's go. When exploring the streets of Biarritz on the RM2, first thing that comes to mind is how much more you feel the wind hitting you from basically just having the sound of the wind because of the bike being silent. And the bike handles city riding quite well with finding little gaps in between cars where you can squeeze through. And if I would have to describe the handling, that's a bit difficult with electric motorbikes really often because of the different structure with the battery instead of the engine. There are some unique challenges when it comes to how to design the handling of an electric motorbike, and I like that they went here with a more classic motorbike feel. The frame feels reminiscent of something of a Honda CB250, which is a really nice feeling because electric motorbikes tend to either feel very stiff and kind of okay-ish but never really great, or you need to put a lot of effort into how they handle, similarly to how Honda did with the WN7, which is not a comparable bike. However, I really like that they went with the quirky, character-driven kind of handling, reminiscent of an actual classic motorbike. And at the end of the day, you really feel like you're riding in style on this beautiful machine through a beautiful town. So now I drove to the ocean. I sadly lost my gloves at the last filming spot. The bike drives for the kind of motorcycle that it is, like an electric motorbike with the engine inside the wheel. From its handling, really all right. It also takes bumps quite well. You're not going to build this successfully into a scrambler, but for street riding, and here in Biarritz the streets can be a bit bumpy, it works plenty fine, and just the look of the bike is really magnificent. Let's have a closer look at that. First thing stands out is for a 125, this is a really high quality paint job. Like, this is comparable to something like a Harley or like a Norton. And basically this is how the rest of the bike looks. Here's where the battery is in, here on the other side. You can open this and then basically take out the batteries and take them with you into the apartment to charge them. So you always start with a full tank basically. I really like the spoked rims. The brake disc looks all big and stuff, but I wish for a bit more brake performance at the front. All this is what the bike looks like. I think for a beautiful little city cruiser, that is plenty alright. So now I spent about 2 hours with the Maeving RM2, and I now don't know a lot of things about the bike that can only be figured out in like a proper day-to-day test over multiple days. The range is supposed to be 130 kilometers. I don't know how that plays out in the 3 different rider modes, and I also don't know like how it ends up in the just day-to-day use if you like go with it to work and do your commuting with it. I think it's really good that you can carry the batteries into the apartment, which is really nice, and charge them there, and then there's the question, how quickly are they full? And I think this bike can be really interesting, especially if you like look at it as like a way to reduce the tax that you need to pay a year. Then it's definitely really nice. And I think for everyone else, it's really cool in the sense of trying to save money on gas for like where you would take the car otherwise, or like a other like motorbike. However, small cc motorbikes also consume very little gas, so you will need some time to catch up on that. I really like that all the components also look very nice, especially a fan of the quality of the color, and also like with this frame being quite thin and similar to a bicycle frame almost, you will be able to take plenty of customization parts for bicycles and for scooters that you can just clamp onto these, and you'll be able to use this bike in a plenty variety of different kind of ways to use it. And I also think that the customization options must be quite plentiful, because you could just slap any kind of clip-ons on here and remove these handlebars. Like, there is, I think, a lot of potential in this one, and it's really beautiful that this thing looks this nice. And I think for a big European city, would it be Paris or Rome, this would be a really nice bike. However, there still need to be a few questions answered that we can only figure out in a long-term review. But I think when looking at electric motorbikes, these are some of the more interesting ones, because this is something where like an electric motorbike actually works in this small application inside the city, and there it actually does a really good figure. Also, the tank has, well, not the tank, it's a storage compartment with 10 liters of storage room. It's really lovely to get your stuff in, and I think this can be quite a beautiful little city cruiser. And I'm quite positively surprised by how they managed the engine inside the wheel. There are other bikes that have a similar concept. For example, there's a German company called Black T that runs a similar concept, and they have a scrambler, and I've ridden that one, and that one feels quite rough already going over train tracks, so they managed it here a lot better than that, which is really lovely. And yeah, what is your opinion on the Maeving RM2 and this kind of beautiful, small CC in quotation marks electric vehicle? Definitely let me know in the comments, and see you guys soon.